So Sydney are a team that is currently sitting in the top 2 as of the time of recording this, and they look to find themselves comfortably within the finals. But we have mentioned in the past, and mentioned in a few other episodes, they're looking a bit shaky. And so we posed the question, should we be worried about how Sydney are finishing off this season? Ben, I'm sure you've got a bit more of a lineup as to what the rest of their season looks like in terms of their matchup. So let me know, are you worried? Do you think there's anything to worry about?
A little bit. I am a little bit worried. They started off so well, and their form line really indicated, they're going to be a top 2 team, let's say, for the rest of the season.
History says they're a top 2 team. History says they're grand finalists in the making.
It does. But I have some serious questions about the way that they're playing, because at the moment it feels like it's not one-dimensional per se, but it feels like it's so reliant on their ball movement by hand that is now being defended in more difficult ways for them to pass through. And it feels like it's taking other elements of their game away from themselves. So obviously they're gaining meters by hand. That is their big thing. It's not simply handball meters gained. It's also the amount of time that they're spending with the ball in hand and running by foot. So just meters gained with ball in hand rather than simply handballing is their biggest strength. At the same time, by getting so many numbers around the ball and using their half backers to really get the ball transitioning, means that they're almost consistently outnumbered in their back half. And so when they do turn it over, because that's starting to increase now, they're getting scored on much more heavily than what they used to. And their backline has always been a big weakness. I think everybody expects that. It's like Tom Carton and you got a 35-year-old Dane Rampy next to him.
And Nick Blakey.
He's not a defender. He's an offensive threat. But speaking of, he's had a significant turn in form. He's been moved around a fair bit over the last few weeks because he's been targeted. And when teams start to target your best player, you got to find different ways to. And putting him as a half forward who turns into a spare hasn't really worked. And I think there are questions starting to be asked about where to now for Dean Cox.
I think this team, well, I mean, obviously they've got the tools to find a different path. And the best teams find a way to win any type of game, no matter what the opponent throws at you. So definitely something that needs to be picked up because of the way that Brisbane managed to pick them apart off the turnover that you had mentioned. Yeah. So the questions start, I think, personally, with the fact that Errol Goulden's back. What do they look at now with Errol Goulden? Because there may be a argument to make that they go even harder in that direction of running handball and just make it work. Just make it work, because we know it's one of the most effective ways of playing now, that quick handball movement down the field, because, of course, you've got to keep yourself give yourself that bit of space while keeping that forward momentum running, and also just gives you the least amount of opportunity of turning that ball over, considering it is short, simple, easy stuff if done correctly. But, of course, against Brisbane, the pressure was so high against them that the turnovers were coming frequently to allow a 126-point score against them. So you maybe think, where can they slow it down? Who can maybe play a bit of that different type of game style? Because I think they have plenty of tools to continue to push this fast handball-oriented game style and push it even further than what they've got it right now. But what if they do need to change angles? What if they do need to find a way to go wide and then cut middle? Because I've seen other teams do it, and it's worked at times. It's provided a different option, provided a different way to play the handball forward game that we're seeing more and more often. And I don't know how much I see it from Sydney. I know that they do love to go down the middle, like just cut straight through it. But the angle change is often where I look towards with this team. And I don't think I see it all that much compared to other teams, despite the fact they've got all the talent to potentially do it. Yeah. So maybe it comes down to a simple tweak in their game style, instead of completely overhauling it.
Yeah, it could be. I think another thing to look at is their stoppage work. Like Brodie Grundy has not been as effective as it was sort of before he got rested against Richmond. He was arguably number one ruckman for the season.
Yeah.
And then now he's not necessarily dropped down out of like the top 4, top 5, but he's very clearly not is in as good a form as what he used to be. And I think that's sort of then taken a bit of an effect. Like Isaac Heaney has still been phenomenal, but he hasn't been quite at his best last, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks. Obviously, now they've now got Errol Goulden back. That's a big thing. That's going to improve so many things. It's going to improve their ball movement, so they're going to have to rely on getting so many players. They can rely more a bit on their star power. But I've still got the same questions that I had sort of 5 weeks ago. I haven't answered it. We put it on, I think, maybe 6 weeks ago, that it's the best time to start having a couple of questions being asked because it means you have time to answer them. I don't think they've answered them. And I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
What are we now looking at with Sydney where they're going to show, okay, Fremantle aren't playing the best football every single week, but they're doing enough to win because they've got different ways of winning it. Sydney seem to only still have that one way to win. What else can they sort of add to their weapon now, add to their mix? Is it going to be incredible ball use, using the likes of Goulden, using the likes of Heaney, Warner, Blakey to sort of get around teams rather than just being a simply ball movement team? Is it maybe a reliance on simply being that good defensively where they just get numbers back? I don't know. What Dean Cox sort of wants to go with is going to sort of see how they progress. Because come finals time, it could very well go back to history where it's no longer a handball movement game. It's all about ball movement by foot.
Yep.
And that completely kills them.
Yeah.
Because they haven't played that way all year. We won't know, but it could very well be that way.
I still think it comes down to the way, maybe it's the way they enter the inside 50. Again, because they are so handball reliant, they can also, it also just means considering you're not getting those entries, you're having to play defense from further up the ground.
True.
So I'm thinking maybe it is because I guess from some teams' perspectives that I'll look at, they'll look to specifically bomb it in, and it'll be frustrating at times because sometimes teams will need to lower their eyes, like a team like Sydney does quite well. But they need to bomb it in to get that length. So not only are they creating opportunities for their tools to either take a contested mark deep in 50 or giving the Rovers around the pack a chance to make something happen from there, but it also allows the defense to set up further so that if the ball is turned over, the opposition have further to go. And so as much as I love the delivery that Sydney can bring in against teams like we saw against Brisbane, where they're not hitting their targets quite as often, and because it's such a short hit up, they now have to turn on a dime further away from their goal.
It's a good question. My question to you is then, do you think them playing 4 tools has then impacted that a little bit? Because at the start of the season, it was very much McDonald, Amati, and Kerno. And we've got Grundy. We'll have Amati play 10 minutes,
Amati
5
is now
minutes, a quarter.
injured. Amati is now potentially out for a bit of time. I think it's an Achilles scare. No one knows just yet exactly what the problem is with Amati. But the idea being, at least I think so. I hope I'm not wrong with that. But yeah, I think there's a world where Tom Papley, hell, even Chad Warner gets rotation down there. There's other smaller. Malcolm Roses is another one that I think of, who's had some big games this season. Not consistent, but has had and shown the signs of being an impact player. I think if potentially they play that kind of long down, deeper 50 role, it just allows Roses to gather and create magic.
More dangerous
exactly
areas.
Right. Yeah. It allows them to become more dangerous. So I think it all comes down to where they are. It could come down to at least where they're setting up their defense from. If they can get their defense set up as a wall, as a 50-meter wall, so that any time it does enter their 50, teams are fighting against not just a midfield, but your likes of Blakey, McCartan, who, I mean, there's talent in that backline. Of course, it's not the strongest backline in the league, but there's talent in there. And when you have set yourself up so well inside deep 50, it just makes it harder for teams to, I guess, make the most of a bad defense. So getting themselves in there, maybe more often than not. Of course, if Kerno is racing at you from 35 out with someone
hit that up.
5 meters behind him, hit him up. Of course. I think they're still absolutely, especially because it's probably in their nature to find their targets because they're so talented. But maybe creating more of an opportunity to go not just one out, but just go deep. Go deep and allow congestion, allow stoppages down there so that you create opportunities. You have the talent. I mean, Heaney is probably one of the most dangerous people around the pack. You've got Warner who can kick goals like nothing, and like you've got the safety often of Goulden out the back to provide options. Nick Blakey as options out the back. There's really good ways of creating a deep forward structure with a nice midfield defense. So I think that could be where they continue to work further on instead of hoping that these handball runs and quick transition does all the work for them. Because against the best teams, they need multiple options, as we've mentioned plenty of times before. I think the way they play will beat a lot of teams who aren't competitive. But we've seen teams like Port Adelaide give them a good run for their money.
100%. It's interesting. It'll be a big query because they are still one of the best teams at their best.
Absolutely.
I feel like when they are playing that handball game and they're able to sort of go straight through teams, even like Fremantle, they'll play them in a couple of weeks. How they go up against them will be really interesting because I think that could be the game of the season. Just two teams going head to head, and it'll be awesome to watch.
This team just can't afford to have a moment in the finals again where they just look lost. That grand final against Brisbane, they looked lost. And it's because they only... And I don't think it was the run and handball. It was under John Longmire at the time. So it was a completely different game style, I think, compared to what Dean Cox has tried to bring into. But again, the team has relied so heavily on what works that as soon as it stops working, there's problems against the best teams.
Yep.
They need to invest heavily in what could potentially be what saves their season. So... all the best to Sydney. I think I mean, there's no doubt in our minds that they have the tools to do it.
Do you think they make a grand final?
History says yes, and I'm inclined to say yes. I think their only main threat will be Hawthorn and maybe Geelong if they somehow catch them at a home game. I think any team versus Geelong at GMHBA is a struggle. Even Fremantle lost to them to start the year, but Sydney at Sydney is a tough task.
Absolutely.
And I think Hawthorn may be their only threat. So that being said, let us know what you think. Were we waffling or were we on to something? Let us know in the comments below. I appreciate you guys tuning into this one. As always, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And, of course, follow us on all our other platforms. Spotify, rate us 5 stars, Instagram, TikTok, all the good stuff. Much love to you guys. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.